Hello and welcome to the NEWaukee Talent Tutorial, part one of our series. We are going to be talking about a variety of different topics that we've seen are common themes across the state of Wisconsin and beyond. And in this first part of this series, we're going to be reviewing the 10 common mistakes everyone makes when starting a YP group. Before we begin, I'm actually going to just start by talking about what NEWaukee is. Oftentimes we get mistaken as a young professional organization, and that's actually not true. We are a social architecture firm that works with companies on their talent attraction and retention. And a few years ago, we kept hearing a common issue with local employers based in Milwaukee around attracting and retaining millennial talent. And as a consequence of that, we developed a program called YP Week, which has become ubiquitously successful, not only in the state of Wisconsin, but across the country, with lots of different copycat organizations trying to replicate the program. And what has in its expansion been really exciting is that we've been able to really examine and work with a variety of different young professional organizations, and we've seen quite a bit of different examples of how these work. And so this presentation is going to be able to go through a variety of different common mistakes that we've found along the way and some of the best practices that we have seen as well. I'm going to start with why this really matters. It's pretty well known that there is, particularly in the state of Wisconsin, a shortage of supply when it comes to talent and a high quantity of demand. But when we talk about economic development, regularly we talk about things like trying to relocate large businesses. And what we sort of propose in this theory of working on the ground and activating the talent that is already here in this state is that the place where the talent is located is actually what attracts the talent, and making sure that your place is super vibrant, amazing, and easy for a young person to connect to really matters, because at the end of the day, the talent itself is what's going to drive that economy, and the combination of both the talent and the place will be what determines that location's economic opportunity in the future. We work, like I said, with companies, we work with nonprofit organizations, we work with municipalities, all of them on their particular talent challenges. And we hear a lot of things around millennials. And it's interesting, as sort of millennial age gets a little bit older, we're seeing similar things come through with Gen Z as well. For whatever reason, this new workforce is not as it has been in the past. And so there are lots of different theories around that. Some of them just sort of broad sweeping generalizations about the generations, and others I think are founded more in how our digital economy has shifted the way that we all work, both as a consumer and employees. But the point is, there have been a proliferation of ways to sort of engage this younger workforce across all of those different entities. So in corporations, you'll find employee resource groups. In nonprofit organizations, you'll find YP boards being founded. At chambers and economic development organizations, there are also YP organizations. And oftentimes, the way that these sort of subset organizations are set up within the larger framework really puts the young people at like a literal kids table. And while the design of them is perhaps well intended, it's not always set up the way that the user might actually want to experience something. And so this is really what we've seen as the best practices moving forward. And the first thing I'll start with is just say why, just be devil's advocate. Before you feel like your community or organization should found a young professional organization, I urge you to think about why you would want to do that, what exactly you would get out of that situation, and to make sure that you don't just do it to do it. While it is a very common trend, an organization that's not set up structurally well or not funded super well, can actually have the exact opposite reaction that you might be looking for in terms of engagement with this next workforce generation. And that actually can be quite detrimental to your larger issues. So to really think about what it is that you're trying to go after and how you're going to do it is super important. The second big piece of this is to be aware of the YP insignia. A lot of times it's easy enough to just say, okay, we're going to set up a YP board for our nonprofit, but that YP board doesn't have any real authority or governance. There's no actual connection to the large organization's mission, and having a bunch of kids sit around a table and play pretend board actually does not help them connect to your larger goals as an organization, or to help you get them super entrenched in whatever it is you want them to be entrenched in. The other thing to consider is just a programmatic layer of this. A lot of times organizations think, well, all we have to do is add a YP to the front of the name of our program and then young people will come. And I'll tell you that young people are quite discerning. They realize that they're being marketed to all the time, and they can easily sniff out the idea that whatever you're saying is not actually for them, that the audience that's going to be there is not going to look like them. And so to be really thoughtful about how you're designing your programs is super, super important. The second piece of this is really around what your YP organization should look like. And the first thing I'll start with seems pretty inherent, but it's that money matters. A lot of times we find that people think, well, it's just about getting young people together and having a good time, or having some sort of like peer affinity. And while peer affinity is important, you need to make sure that however you're structuring your organization, it's well funded, because what's going to happen inevitably is that group of young kids is going to get together. They're going to be super excited about whatever issue might be at play, or come together and actually want to build something, and they won't have the structure or the ability to actually do so, and that actually can be so disenfranchising and frustrating. So to be thoughtful about how it is you're going to fund these and why you're justifying those funds. As a corporation, you should be justifying it because you're looking for this group to potentially stay with your organization long term in terms of talent engagement and retention. As a nonprofit, you're probably looking at it as board succession, or even just organization, potential new donors in the future. All those things matter, and you don't want to curtail their enthusiasm by saying, well, actually, while your ideas are nice, we're just going to move ahead and do what we've always done. The second thing to consider when it comes to setting up, what your organization should look like, is that talent is not a nonprofit thing. And this can be sort of a disconcerting statement to make. But what we believe at NEWaukee is that, at the end of the day, the companies that are going to have this talent base to buy their stuff and to make their stuff are the ones that are profiting from this. And while it can make sense to house an organization like a YP group within a collective nonprofit like an EDO or a chamber, because multiple companies should be able to benefit from it, and that's great and awesome, it should not be set up as a charity. This should be something that is serviceable, and that actually contributes to the larger economy. It shouldn't be something that's just a one-off sponsor, or the sort of like, seeking in-kind donations, because that's where there's A, burnout with the volunteers because they're not well situated and well structured, and B, the organization can become this like heavy lift for the parent entity, when it really should be like a driving force in a way that that larger organization is moving forward. I have a couple of suggestions about what it means to be a service-based in terms of your funding. And that means that if you're organized in a way that your young people are discerning what is really great about the place that they're living in, They should be well abreast about what the community has to offer. And while the programs themselves can offer opportunities for things like event sponsorship or the curation of new events for a company, it should go beyond the sort of event-based funding. And there is a way to create things that are both internal and externally beneficial for the local employers there that should be able to be monetized in a variety of different ways, whether that be community tours outside the workplace or orientations that happen inside the workplace, creating internship experiences that help to show those early graduates or new graduates why they should pick that community. And then to be really thoughtful about the fact that over time, as the group continues to sort of build an audience, they should be building a database that can be leveraged for things like advertising open positions on a job board, featuring company profiles, featuring employee profiles, general local branding, etc. All of those things are amazing opportunities for revenue. And while they can be bundled into some sort of membership package. What we find with membership packages is that it's hard to express inherent value. Whereas if you set these services up as things that people can pick off of a menu, they can see the actual value that's laid before them. Tip number 5 is to be really thoughtful about brand voice and to be cognizant of the fact that as you're starting a young professional organization, you're going to have to essentially have 2 different voices. The first, it attracts the audience you're looking for, the young professionals to come, and that's probably going to need to be more evocative, more playful, more friendly, and to just sound like a good time. But on the flip side of it, the people who are paying for that organization to succeed are probably going to need something to look more buttoned up, more holistic, more professional. And so to be mindful of the fact that the message has to be the same, but that it's probably going to need to sound different in order to attract both those audiences is super critical. Number 6 is really around when we talk about programming, what it should look like. And by all means, it needs to be about the party. It needs to be about young people having a chance to meet their peers, to have a good time, find what they love, about the place that they have called home. And while you can have professional development style programming and you can have community-based volunteer activities, all of those are super important. You should be really thoughtful about the mix of your programming as well as how those things can be just more interactive and dynamic and not the same old thing that anyone can go to at any time. Because the point is, we live in a time where we're super connected and there is a lot going on. And we always say, the biggest competitor is the couch. So how do we get people up and off the couch and out being involved where they live? The flip side of that, though, is that it actually can't be about the party holistically. And what I mean by that is that, while it might be, like in this case of this picture, a night market, which is about people coming together to drink at a beer garden and to shop at local vendors and to dance in the middle of West Wisconsin Avenue in downtown Milwaukee. The reasoning behind this program is super intense. So we actually set up this this summer series as a reaction to this part of our downtown sort of befalling some hard times and being a less than coveted area of town. And there's a lot of thoughtfulness around the types of vendors that are there, the types of performers that are there, and really helping the public to have a new perception of this particular area of downtown. All of that you're going to say is, well, what does a young professional organization have to do with changing perceptions of downtown? And we'll contend everything, really, because we want to be able to say that involving your young people in the recreation or not only finding what they love but changing what they don't about your city is actually going to be where you get that stickiness, where you get that retention, because you go from engagement to somebody feeling like this is my hometown and I can't imagine living anywhere else. The third part of this is how to do this, and I talk about this in a variety of ways. The first is to realize, as a young professional leader, you're going to need to check your ego at the door. The type of cultural production that we see being most effective in young professional organizations requires you to both be on camera at the local media as well as picking up the trash at the end of the event. By and large, these organizations are going to be small staffed. We have yet to find an organization that has, dozens and dozens of support people. You'd be lucky to find maybe one full-time staff, if not just part-time or solely volunteer based. And so to realize that it's going to be a lot of work, that it's a long play, and so, just because you host one program doesn't mean that your community's talent attraction retention issues are solved. It's going to require quite a bit of time and investment. The other thing to consider is that nothing comes for free. And what I mean by that is, as you get going with your organization, you're going to find that lots of people want to glom on. They want to, tell you that their new special at their restaurant is something that young people are really going to love. And you have to be really discerning about how it is you set up your determining factors for what gets cleared as a part of your organization, what you actually want to promote, who you want to partner with, who you want to take money from, frankly, as well. I mean, while I advocate that you be really, really thoughtful about, having a sustainable and monetized organization, you have to know exactly from the outset why someone is interested in giving you that money, and to make sure that you can actually deliver on that ROI. And finally, please remember that volunteers are volunteering, and that you're asking them to be a part of something that is outside of their work and their family life. And so there's inevitably going to be some burnout and some churn that happens there. And so think about, when you're structuring things, how you can be super grateful for their participation, how you can acknowledge them both publicly and privately, so that they feel like what they're contributing is being seen and heard and valued in some way. And just recognize that over time you are going to see new people come in, and that's actually a good thing, because the point is, YPs don't stay Y forever. And that's our bonus tip here, is to realize that there is ideally going to be some evolution of who's running an organization, who's at the table, and that as people sort of graduate off and become what we affectionately call an OP, ideally their experience with your organization has entrenched them into that larger community and given them a place to sort of call home. If you have any questions about this presentation, I encourage you to contact us at NEWaukee at contact@NEWaukee.com. You can check out all of our programs and projects at NEWaukee.com. Thank you so much for listening to the part 1 of our talent engagement tutorials. We look forward to seeing you around.